Hello, good evening, and welcome back. Well, let's dish out some financial white pills and then get a bit black pilled as the expected recourse from it. So, from the Daily Mail, how minnows sank the Wall Street sharks is the most astonishing financial story for years. The army of small investors who took sweet revenge on cynical hedge fund millionaires. And this all started off nicely, but unfortunately, the latest is not so positive, that they're trying to claw their way back. In short, the story is the hedge funds, including Melvin Capital in particular, that's being singled out, thought, well, okay, it's lockdown, so we're going to short some stock, as in bet against it, as in expect it to go down, and they'll gain money off of that, sell it off and then buy it later, and they get their tidy profits through the brokers. And they will do that for brick and mortar stores, which of course have to close during lockdown, and in particular they've gone with GameStop to try and fight back. And individuals on Reddit, r/Wall Street Bets, which is a great read, should you wish to be on the edge of your seat seeing people bet away their mortgages, that they thought, no, actually, we're not a fan of this. And it's kind of the nostalgia as well, because it's not just GameStop, but also like, Nokia, Bed Bath & Beyond, these sorts of companies that people have their $600 stimulus checks in the US and go, might as well put it there, why not? And because there were 2.5 million members of the forum at the time, and now it's almost doubled, I think it's at 4.5 million, maybe 5, that a lot of people got involved in it and thought, yeah, why not? Understanding, of course, that there would be losses involved, but, I mean, the phrase is that the market can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent, but they're taking it as, yeah, but we can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent. And so, as Bill Whittle said, it's rationally irrational. That people understand that they may very well be losing their money, but to them it's not much of a loss compared to how they're upending Wall Street and hedge funds that specialize on shorting. And that makes them feel very, very pleased, because it's a return of the little guy that, of course, is now being branded as Trumpism, because just because Trump is out doesn't mean we have to stop talking about him. So not just office of the former president, but also let's just name an ism after him. Why not? We've done it with Thatcherism and even with Corbynism, even though he's never been in power, so why not? Isms are fun. But the fallout from this has been that, although they used an app, Robinhood in particular, that makes sense, that they're taking from the rich and giving back to the taxpayers, as Robinhood did, that they've decided to halt the trading in order to defend the hedge funds, because after all, they're the lobbyists, they're the fat cats, the ones with the capital and the power and the persuasion when it comes to politics, so of course they're going to meddle in order to not get a loss. If you get a loss, then hey, it's just part of the game, but if they get a loss, then that's clearly unacceptable and they must stop the game. So yes, App Robinhood halted ability to purchase new shares of GameStonk, as Elon Musk calls it, this week. Video game chain shares stood at $240 yesterday, having been up at $469, and bear in mind that this started off at $17 and it rose to $240 in a day, and then up to $469. Financiers are not celebrating with champagne, but howling with fury, as you would expect, because they're thinking, we're above all this, and we know exactly what we're doing, and aren't we clever, considering that the microtransactions happen at such an astonishing rate that when it comes to Wall Street financiers, that they move their buildings to be closer to the internet servers, because the transactions happen so quickly that the speed of light is actually a factor when it comes to delivering information and making their decisions. That if they can get the drop on someone else in just a millisecond or so, then that's the difference between winning or losing. That is how ridiculous it gets. So when it comes to something that is far more widespread and, actually takes hours, then they don't know what to do, because it is no longer as predictable as they would have thought. And of course, we have had people that have profited off phenomenally, because of course there was, as I say here, one lucky investor who claims to have turned a $50,000 stake in the company into $23 million because of leverage. And from what we can see, it's not just nostalgia actually that's had this effect, and individuals on Wall Street Bets thinking, let's just screw over Melvin Capital and the other hedge funds that have tried to screw us over so many times before, and we've had to bail out when it came to them with their subprime mortgage lending, which caused the '08 crisis. That GameStop in particular, there's actually more to it than meets the eye, which I don't think has been covered nearly enough, but we'll try and go into detail here. Because although you've got, losses of several $1 billion when it comes to the hedge funds, you have got a particular chap, and we'll find the name of him in a minute, August last year, Ryan Cohen, a billionaire 30-something, founder of an online pet food seller, started buying millions of shares in GameStop. He and two executives later joined GameStop's board with plans to help the company move online. And the company is now valued at $10 billion, more than American Airlines, the biggest in the country. So, he joined last August, and he wanted it to move online. And on top of that, you've got the two major games consoles coming out, with Sony from Microsoft releasing PlayStation and Xbox respectively. So of course that would have helped out GameStop, as well as of course moving online. But on top of that, the GameStop even signed a deal with Microsoft that gave it a share of online Xbox earnings. So yes, they had kind of realized the move is to go online, and we kind of need to diversify as much as you can while still remaining a game store. And therefore, okay, they were losing money because of the coronavirus crisis, but there was still business acumen going on in order to try and turn it around. And then, of course, it gets picked up on Wall Street Bets, and the rest is history. So although they were trying to be shorted, as I say, some 70 million shares were shorted. However, GameStop has fewer than 70 million shares in total, of which about a fifth are held by company executives who are prevented under insider trader laws from selling them easily, and of course they had no intention of doing so. That now they've seen it, as I say, the Wall Street Bets forum has gone from 2 million to 4.5 million. There we go. The people buying in also to BlackBerry and Nokia and Pearson and Odeon Cinemas, that they don't really care if they lose their money, because it all comes down to just sticking it up to the big man. So in return, well, Wall Street Bets, that's clearly a white supremacist page now. Oh, it's clearly full of hate speech, and we've just got to close down that forum. Just like they did with the Donald on Reddit, which then went to the Donald.win as their own website because they'd been forced out. Even though they hadn't been posting for a couple of months, it still got closed for the hate speech, which wasn't true because it wasn't even used, but nonetheless they'll swing it however they can. That they're trying to do the same with Wall Street Bets. The only issue here is, of course, that this really shows up the establishment as much as possible, because even Democrats are in support of Wall Street Bets. So we've got, for example, AOC. Yeah, so after Robinhood and Interactive Brokers restricted trading on shares, AOC came out and criticised the move, calling for a committee hearing in Washington. And it was rumoured that lawsuits were being considered against the brokerages. Because, believe it or not, there are still some Democrats who don't like Wall Street. And sure, Wall Street is quite useful for a lot of people, and the pensions are there. However, when it comes to one rule for one, another for someone else, then hey, of course I'm going to go against that. And that is when you're going to see cross-party support reaching across the aisle in actually going after regulators that are trying to squeeze out the little guy, because the big guy is now in trouble. And that is where you will see even, say the firebrand left-wing senator, or, one of the squad, one of the very so-called progressives, are going to come out and stand up for the little guy. Moreover, from Ro Khanna, another Democrat congressman, we're done letting hedge fund billionaires treat the stock market like their personal playground, then taking their ball home as soon as they lose. Yep. So you can see bipartisan support to say, no, this is actually something that is good. It's a good shake-up, and that the hedge funds shouldn't be able to get away with it of playing by one set of rules and then changing it when they start losing. And GameStonk, well, they're loving it. we all know that it's a bubble that will be burst eventually, and people will lose out money there. As you got Michael Berry saying the same thing, that the latest developments are unnatural, insane, and dangerous, and that the short squeeze may yet become a lethal crush, because of course the stock will come down eventually, most likely. But most of the people who are investing in this don't really care. They're not investing a great deal, and they're just doing it to be irrational, to ensure that their enemies of rule-changing hedge funds don't remain solvent. So they're not fussed. They're aware of the risks, and they're doing it anyway, which is fantastic. And I think that also, just as a final thought, also goes to prove that we can still keep some surprises in store and not let things be so predictable and not have to play by their rules all the time. And you can actually stir things up, do something unpredictable. Or they say, like blowing up an ammo dump behind enemy lines, that kind of thing. Just keep them going around the map, not knowing what is going on or what is going to happen next, and keep them on the back foot for once, instead of allowing them to be the rule makers and the trendsetters. So there you go. A bit of a mixed bag today. But as always, let me know what you guys think down below. Do you think this is actually sustainable, and that we could see more of this happening in the future? As, of course, a lot more people have got into stock markets since the COVID crisis, and you've seen financial channels on YouTube doing phenomenally well, and the financial sector itself is the one that did best throughout the lockdown. In particular, of course, someone like GAMESTONK, who's succeeded very well over the past year for posting finance videos. Or do you think, no, there might be a glimmer of hope every now and then, which is allowed to last for a day or two at most, but then it will be shot down, never to be repeated again? Either way, let me know down below. Always intrigued to hear what you guys have to say. And as always, until next time, have a good one.